Welcome to the August 13th, Friday the 13th episode of Den Excelsior, the mostly Marvel podcast. As you probably gathered from the name, discussing the latest happenings across all media in Marvel is what we do. But we've also been known to stray off topic from time to time. Basically, if it's superpowered, it's fair game. My name is Dennis, and this is my preferred way to spend a Friday night in year two of a pandemic. I don't know about you guys. With me, as always, I have a distinguished nerd panel. I'm going to start introducing them right now so they can get out here and start cracking wise and everything. First up, he's my favorite person to misinterpret tone in Slack chats. It's Frank.
Yo, we had a lot of tone issues today, tonal issues.
I wouldn't say just today. It's just in general.
Yeah, I'm going to say it's a brand new thing, actually. Yeah. Well, we got to wrap this up though, because I got a jalapeno cheesecake in my fridge that I want to eat. So,
so we got to wrap this up.
Yeah,
right
let's
now.
Wrap this up early.
All right, we're gonna end the show a little early, guys. It was fun chatting with everybody.
It was good. It was
good. No, next up, he's got a new computer, ladies and gentlemen. What could go wrong?
Nothing.
It's Ricky. He never waits for me to say his name anymore.
I have too much control.
He has too much power.
Yeah, it's Friday the 13th. You ever gotten a Friday the 13th tattoo, Frank?
I wanted one, actually. There was a Jason one that I wanted to get on my fingers, but I didn't want to look like I was like a crazy witch lady or something.
There's a Venn diagram of
I don't know.
Crazy people and people with Jason tattoos. So I don't know if I would get that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, that was a great segue to introduce our special.
Oh God,
guest.
I hope he doesn't have any Jason.
Oh no, he's got finger Jason tattoos all over.
So we have a special guest. He's a former colleague of mine. We were just chatting about that a few minutes ago. And I feel like I actually, even though I used to work with him back in the day, I feel like I probably talk to him more now, just because of nerd fights that we have on social media so often. He's one of the biggest Captain America fans that I know. It's Greg Phillips.
Hello.
Was that a fairly accurate assessment?
You know, I'd say yes, it is.
Oh,
that's that legit one, right? That's like
that's the 80th or 75th anniversary one, right?
I don't remember. I got it. Let's see, what's the year on it? 2008. Comes with a whole mounting thing, goes on the arm,
and it's solid vibranium, right?
I wish. Doesn't quite bounce off the walls like you'd expect. I mean, $200 only gets you so far these days.
How many
tell that to a home intruder?
Yeah, true.
How many terrorists have you killed with it?
Not yet. I'm not the John Walker Captain America here. Oh, this is more the prim and proper.
You're the
not prim and proper, but yes.
To be fair, that Captain America has probably killed a few terrorists too.
True, and the MCU version has gotten a few killed.
Has he? He'll grenade them, he'll shoot them.
I would say disabled.
He kills you with medical bills.
Yeah,
that's what he does.
He does kill you with medical bills. That is pretty accurate. Well, I was also asking, is that accurate that you and I probably talk more now than we did back in the day?
So mostly, yes. I'd say we worked together on a couple projects, and on that we were probably talking daily on those when we were hitting certain strides.
That's fair.
But since after that, outside of those, we didn't talk a whole lot at Sony other than key events and such. We happen to be all getting together or for whatnot. Yeah. And then since then, yes, we'll pop up on Travis's or one of our feeds and just start firing off,
arguing. Yes. Well, I like the frequency at which we receive nerd media nowadays, because it allows it's definitely helped us get through a year and a half of. Is this a year and a half? We're about a year and a half into a pandemic, right?
March.
Depends on when
yeah.
Depends on when you started tracking it. If you tracked it into February, March, we're at the year and a half, or pretty close to the year and a half.
By tracking, I mean when people started having to stay home.
I mean,
late February, early March was part of it.
Yeah. But it's been a godsend for me just to have like nerdy things to talk about to distract myself with. So I appreciate all the times.
We're kind of coming up on the wells. I don't say it's drying, but like right after this year, a lot because all the shit that's kind of come out was shot before or right at the beginning of COVID.
They've still been shooting more.
They've been shooting a lot more. Like
The
they've
well
actually,
isn't.
The
well's
well's
not
dry,
done.
gentlemen. Let's wrap it up. I got a cheesecake to eat.
yeah, yes, the cheesecake. But no, like they've got all the Netflix shows. They've got, Marvel's had Strange, Spidey. Those all hit next year. You have, I think, Flash. You have hitting next year. You have what
All
other
tentative.
stuff? Boys.
Well, I mean, wait, Ricky, are you saying this as in you know something that we don't, that these movies are not going to release anymore? They're just not gonna-
He's threatened several studios. He's got a real problem with that.
I will leak sensitive emails to the studios.
You don't leak them to the studios; you leak them from the studios. That's
he keeps getting it wrong. He keeps leaking the publicities.
Well, at least he's not trying to give free endorsements.
I feel like everyone's still trying to figure out like do I release on VOD? Do I try a movie theater thing?
Yeah,
do
but
both.
At the end of the day, like the whole thing is they have a product that they want to deliver, and they want to make as much money as they can on that. And so that product is endless right now. Like it's not. There's too much of it in front of us. So like, when it comes out, that's a question. But like, will it come out? It's gonna come out. So. But I do have a question for Greg, because we try to ask this question anytime we have a new guest on our show. And thank you so much for being on the show. But I want to know, and I know this you kind of already answered it a little bit just with the shield that you showed off. But what does Marvel mean to you?
I'm getting massive interference.
Is it the shield? Does the shield block 5G?
Okay, now it's behaving.
The vaccine
might block 5Gs. I wasn't going to go near those jokes. But yeah,
Ricky does the low-hanging fruit. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, fair enough.
Did you hear my question, by the way?
I did not. It was like staticky for the last minute.
I wanted to know, what does Marvel mean to you?
Ooh, okay. Marvel mean to me. So I probably got my first comics around the time like X-Men 275 when Claremont was still on. And Marvel was like one of those things, was like a gateway, an escape. I wasn't the biggest comic person, I would say, when I was young. Just there wasn't the breadth of stuff that there is now. There wasn't, a bunch of different shows on in every network. There wasn't a wide swath of animation. There was Spidey and His Amazing Friends and maybe the X-Men cartoon. And so it was just a gateway into a whole new type of storytelling, whole new type of sets of worlds. And, the Marvel characters I've always found to be more relatable. Like there's always little bits and pieces of each of them you can kind of pull out and kind of like, okay, I relate to that. Whereas DC has always been more of the archetypes of the world or archetypes of superhero. These are more relatable characters. Peter Parker, the ultimate relatable character for a lot of people. And then Miles is relatable for a lot of the others. And there's multiple Spider-Mans that kind of hit that. You have the X-Men that's like kind of always playing along sort of like the race allegory in America and everything, like how people are hated and feared and that. And so you get into this thing that a lot of people can really relate to, Cap, kind of his kind of obligation to country and also obligation to self, like to not go over any of these lines. And you can go down the list of the characters and all of them being relatable and kind of doing these extraordinary things made that just a little bit more special.
That's why I had him on the show, guys. Right there. Frank, do you have any follow-up questions for him on that?
Follow-up questions. What's your favorite Spider-Man and why? It can't be Peter Parker. Besides Peter Parker, what's your favorite Spider-Man and why?
I'd probably stick to the Spider-Verse Miles. I thought that was a really well done character, and it did a good job of encapsulating the things that made the Peter Parker story interesting. He was a coming of age. He kind of had to learn how to be Spider-Man. He got dropped in the deep end but he never really lost himself along the way. Beyond that, it's harder because there's more like different flavors of Peter that have been the more interesting, but there have been some good ones along the way. I'm also very partial to the Superior Spider-Man, the Doc Ock Spidey. I thought the Dan Slott run on those books was great. He did a really, truthfully, I thought his run kind of got a little bit, it kind of lost some steam after he wrapped that up, but that entire build up to Superior and the run of Superior leading up to Peter taking back over was just great. Yeah. Some of the best Spidey comics in the last 20, 30 years.
Sure. Superior was definitely one of the last comics to make me laugh out loud while I was just sitting around reading it. It's some funny stuff for sure.
I enjoyed when they brought it back from Superior and Peter had to deal with the fallout where he lost his PhD and he had to regain it. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah. To me, that's
it was
just being a schlub.
Well,
it was just great seeing them build all that stuff up, and like everything in there was earned. Every beat across 5 years was something talked about somewhere in the 5-year run. It wasn't just automatically everything happens. It was earned. Everything that's Peter and went through, wins he got, losses he took.
Well, I appreciate you giving us such an extensive answer on both questions. That's really awesome. I'm really excited for us to talk about the thing that we're all here to talk about, which is episode 1 of What If. But before we dive into that, we've got some news and rumors to discuss and a brief nerd appetizer on a topic relevant to today's main spotlight. As a reminder, this is also a chance for you, the audience, to pick our brains with any marvelous trivia or points of confusion you may have. We'll be checking the comments throughout the show. And for those of you that can't get enough of us, you can visit patreon.com/GenXmedia immediately after this broadcast ends for our live post show, The Soapbox, where we wind down and talk about stuff we didn't get to in like the first 1.5 hours somehow. There, I got all that out of the way. Greg, I don't know if I directed you, but there is a little comments tab over on the right-hand side, so you can check those out. Ricky or I will try and put them up on the screen every now and then, so you'll see them as well. But yeah, we did a little bit of news gathering this week, but we did a little different. We wanted to make it a little more fun. Ricky, do you want to start off the news with us?
Let's do it. Alrighty. It feels like deja vu. Another week we're talking about Venom 2, Let There Be Carnage. Last week we got a trailer with a release date on it. And
it said this fall.
This fall. And we kind of know why now. Venom 2 was pushed back, what is it, a week? I think is in total what it got pushed back to.
Was it a week? I don't know. It says right there on the article.
Back to October.
Yeah, I thought it was closer to a month.
Take your banner off there. It says
24th to the
September
15th.
24th to October 15th. Yeah, that's
a little under a month.
That's like 3 weeks.
3 weeks, yeah.
In Ricky years, that's 1 week.
That is 1 week.
Math is not a strong suit.
It's been 3 hours since you looked at me.
Well, I mean, it's obviously it's because of the Delta surge that we're kind of seeing across the country.
It's not just that movie too. A lot of movies are already pulling the trigger on that. Like Clifford the Big Red Dog. Sorry, has also been postponed, and I think some other ones.
Not Clifford. Dang, not Clifford.
I know, right?
Oh, no.
Hotel Transylvania, I think, is being pushed, or they're considering pushing it. Yeah, and they're questioning whether or not James Bond is going to do it as well again.
That would suck for Bond.
Yeah, and I know the bigger question, which Disney seems to be holding firm on, is Shang-Chi, right? Like
so they had their investor meeting this week, and they were pressed on that specific question: will Shang-Chi do like a Disney premiere style release? And they said no. And then they were pressed even further, and they kind of, in a way, were saying that this is an experiment for them to see how that movie is going to perform without a video on demand or a Disney Plus premiere release, because that movie is going to be coming to Disney Plus 45 days after release.
Yeah.
So it's a little interesting.
That
I
Venom article was saying how like there's a polling that they do to like determine audience confidence levels in theaters, and I think right now the confidence level is like at 62%, and generally the theaters get worried if it's lower than a 70%. So basically that's where the people that have been polled have said that they're comfortable, returning to theaters. So you've seen it in the box office, right? Everything after Black Widow has just been going downhill pretty fast. Yeah. Suicide Squad, 26 million last weekend, man.
That's nuts.
That's so bad. That movie was fantastic too. And
Well, the thing with Suicide Squad, I think, is it came in, it has the DCU kind of not well liked, or kind of a little bit of
it's also an R movie too.
It's an R movie, but that hasn't really, like, we saw that with Deadpool, we've seen that with other things. That doesn't matter. You have a universe that people are caring about less. You've got a brand that people are really confused about. Like the fact that running it back is kind of like, okay, are we seeing the same thing I saw last time? Then you had the pandemic on top of it, and it doesn't matter how good the movie is, you're kind of like two strikes against you, and then you have everything on Max for free. So effectively, if I've subscribed to Max for $20 to try to get me to buy in, I'm getting all these movies. Like I've watched Space Jam with my 4-year-old daughter like a dozen times. I never would have gone to see it in theaters. I probably would have bought it on video on demand, but it's worked out perfectly. And that's awesome for me as a consumer. Yes, it keeps me on HBO. So yes, Warner's happy, they win. But for theaters and the whole theatrical experience, not so much. There's just no reason right now. Like Venom's another movie I feel like is going to fall very similar thing, because it's a thing that stands alone. It was interesting. It did all right when it came around. There's no real indication it ties into anything bigger. There's been talk for ages of a Sony like extended universe, and they can't seem to get their act together. I mean, Morbius.
The Spumoni.
Yes, it's just like it just, and the trailers just aren't that interesting.
Yeah,
it'll be curious if, like, let's say Venom gets pushed back again. Like, we might end up in a situation where Venom and Morbius come out like within a month from each other, which I think would be interesting if they are trying to.
Is that Ricky math for a month, or is it an actual month?
So that's 3 months in Ricky time.
That's 3 months in Ricky time.
I mean, I could see it getting pushed out of the year. I could see everything that is potentially like big action blockbuster getting moved out of the year. I think the only reason they won't do that is if they do that, they're pretty much killing theatrical. Like AMC needs to pivot. There's a bigger, larger theatrical conversation. But if they do not have some film to keep the doors open during the holidays, theaters will not survive another round of this. And we're probably stretching into the fun of pandemics and such. We're probably going to be seeing various waves over the course of the next few months that are going to keep theatrical confidence lower than the studios would like.
Yeah.
Do you think we get a Spider-Man this year, Dennis?
You're asking me?
I'm asking you.
I don't even care. Like, I'm the wrong person to ask. I don't care if we do. Like, I will watch these movies whenever they come out. So like, I'm not the one that's like clamoring for the trailer every weekend. To like, where's the trailer? Frank, you're muted. You had funny things to say.
Ask me, Ricky. Ask me.
What do you think we get a Spider-Man this year, Frank?
You're asking the wrong person. I don't care. You gotta go 3 for 3. You gotta ask Greg now.
Greg.
Well, I guess I care, but I think it's going to depend whether there's any pushes in the Marvel slate, because the Marvel story is so interconnected.
Exactly.
There's probably a reasonable bet that if they have to push Shang-Chi, they have to push Spidey, they have to push anything.
Eternals.
Whole slate move. Eternals is a weird one. Like, I feel like that one. Yeah, if they push either of those two, then Spidey's probably getting pushed. The other thing to keep in mind is Sony will have a say in what happens with Spidey. It will not just be Disney. Yeah. So if things are going nutty in the winter, which some predictions say they will be, they'll probably move it out of the holiday just to try to maximize their box office.
Well,
or they'll make some crazy deal to like direct a video to like do a Disney Plus type thing.
Mm-hmm. In regards to like the Disney stuff, I wonder how that ScarJo lawsuit. Like, I'd be curious if the contract structure for the Shang-Chi actors and the Eternals actors are tied to video or theatrical releases. You know.
I mean,
the contract says you get 20 mil and that's it. Stop asking for more. That's all you get.
I think there's a bigger Hollywood geopolitics going on, that they all see the writing on the wall that theatrical is no longer going to be tying everything to your theatrical box office in a world where theaters may not survive isn't the right way.
Yeah.
So I think you're seeing kind of a shift, and she's one of the power players that can make a push towards that shift of, hey, I want some of the streaming money.
Yeah.
I have no idea how that's going to play out. That's between all of them. I would say, I don't know. Like I said, I think the real curiosity to me is whether or not Disney tries to hold the date. And truthfully, with Shang-Chi, it's going to come down to, is China able to get its country back and going? Because it's got some provinces right now that are closed due to COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And they're banking on that thing doing huge numbers there because, I mean, it's built for that market. So if that market's not ready to go to theaters, that thing's getting pushed. And at that point, all bets are off.
Yeah. It's when I say I don't care, by the way, I mean, like, I'll watch these movies, you know, because I enjoy them, but it doesn't matter to me when they come out. You know, to me, I think lives matter more. You know, like, I think I care more about like, let's get this thing out of the way. Let's get this COVID thing locked up. Like, if we don't deserve Spider-Man because we still are going through this, then so be it. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, it's just, I'm willing. I've sacrificed 2 Comic-Cons already, man. I can keep going.
No, I mean, if anything, I think Disney will be fine because we're getting Hawkeye in the fall. You know, we can sustain a little bit longer with some drip feed stuff, but you know, at some point, I think next year you got to start. I feel like you got to start cutting losses. You know, not with like in terms of movies, but you're going to be running out of dates because now you're pushing in further and further into a schedule everything's
gonna get moved. That's just how it's gonna work.
Just delay, Ricky, that it's gonna just squash the entire fanfare around superheroes. Because already I'm seeing a lot of people like not really interested in cape movies these days. You think it's gonna move back to westerns or something like that?
I don't think it'll move back to westerns, but
I think there will be something. There's always something that will be the popular thing, and who knows? You know, eventually. You know, something else will replace the superhero story. But you know, for right now, let's just enjoy it, you know, while we can. But
I think it's a couple things. I think it's, yes, there's a little bit of apathy, like not apathy, but a little bit of like, okay, I've seen this. I don't necessarily want to be on the Marvel train. I don't want to do the DC thing.
Yeah.
But people are still excited for it. I mean, you saw that with Black Widow come out and pop a huge number in a pandemic. Even with the pandemic receding, you're still seeing these shows do huge streaming numbers. So they're still there. I think you're kind of getting a little vocal minority. Plus, when people can get back into society, this is going to be a key part of it. But to Ricky's point, I also think, yeah, you're going to hit a point where eventually you can't push these further, because if you're pushing the slate out too far, like say you make a movie that's supposed to shit, like let's say a hypothetical, you had a movie this year, like what if they held Widow to next year? Well, at a certain point, what they've done in Widow, like, won't hold up with newer movies. It'll also like jam the cars up on the Disney Plus. It'll jam the cars up on that. That's the one thing with Marvel's strategy, which is awesome, is much like the comics to have that continuing line of stories that all interconnect in some light ways. Yeah. Eventually your trains are going to get backed up and then you're completely screwed. You're either dumping everything out there or not. So sooner or later, those things are going to probably have to go, but I don't think we're anywhere close to that yet.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of beloved superhero movies,
this is Frank's piece of news right here.
New story brought by Frank.
Hey,
Danny DeVito is going to be writing for Batman 89.
Not for Batman 89. No.
The comic, right? Is it
no, not for Batman 89. Damn it, Ricky.
I butchered. I checked my notes.
No, he's writing for a special comic called I think DC or Gotham City Villains.
Gotham City Villains Anniversary.
And it's a bunch of collected stories about the different villains. And so he's doing a one-shot story in there about the Penguin.
I enjoy
Frank,
that everyone but me is talking about this. That's great.
Yeah, Frank, you tell us more.
Let's get everyone hyped about it. No, I like it. I like the hype.
I think it's super cool. I think it's hilarious, and I think it's one of those things where like you have to reach Danny DeVito's status to just be asked to just, hey, do you want to write this? Because like we don't know what your writing credentials for comics are, but like, would you please write this story? You know?
Well, I mean, they gave writing credit to Richard Donner for that Last Son 5-issue series that he did with Jeff Johns, and
Yeah.
other non-comic book, like Kevin Smith has written an amazing story called Batman: The Widening Gear.
This is a
By
difference
amazing, I
between
mean
Richard
not very
Donner,
good.
Kevin Smith, and Danny DeVito.
Yeah, but Danny DeVito's been like this lasting entity in Hollywood who's
That's
gone
true.
from like a show called Taxi and like to become like some weird like offshoot comedian, you know, like in Twins or taking weird roles like the Penguin and stuff like that, and
Yeah.
then going from all that and being in Matilda and Beloved in Matilda, and then going to like was it
Sunny.
yes,
Sunny.
Always Sunny in Philadelphia, yes, and doing weird stuff, going full frontal, hanging
But
dong.
he doesn't write any of those, Frank. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, but
I'm saying to me this sounds like when you give a celebrity an honorary degree.
Honorary comic.
Yeah, it's an honorary comic writing
Like,
gig.
fuck it.
I
Can we
don't
get
think
DeVito?
I don't
You
think
want
it's
this?
a bad idea. I think it's a bonkers idea, and I'm down to read it.
yeah, but like
Well-
even William Shatner has written Star Trek
Yeah,
novels
that's
That's
and
fair.
transitioned into Star Trek comics.
That's
And
fair.
you
Were
don't
they
think
good?
of
Were
William
they
Shatner.
were they good? Were they good?
I'm
The
not
Star
going to
Trek-
comment on that. That's not the point here. The point is they've written more novels and comics than I have. And
To be-
That's fair.
what's important.
To be fair, did any of you guys ever read From a Certain Point of View, the Star Wars like anthology? That's kind of the same thing. A bunch of, granted,
Oh.
they're actual guest writers, but writing little Star Wars side stories.
That's right.
And I love them. Like they're so great. If you ever listen to the audiobooks, they're all like scripted too.
It's read by Will Wheaton, right? Isn't it? Am I correct?
Each audiobook or each little story of like the 20 stories are different, narrated by different people.
Wait,
Like Nathan Fillion has one.
Will Wheaton wormed his way into the Star Wars universe too?
I mean, I'm not going to
Yeah.
call him a worm.
He wormed his way. He did the worm.
What did DeVito do to get himself into this thing?
He played the
What-
fucking Penguin, and he's writing a
His lawyer's like,
Good
"Hey,
story.
take 10 grand." All right, or his agent.
Greg, what's your thought on this one before we move on to another one?
Yeah, I kind of agree. This feels like a token thing. This feels like they're playing up on Batman nostalgia. They're hitting the kind of, okay, we're talking about all this stuff. The Tim Burton stuff's being talked about a bit. You're
Yeah.
seeing some of this come back in the Flash. Why not bring DeVito in? He's well loved. You'll get something out of it. You'll get a couple news clicks, and that's all it needs to be.
Agreed.
all he has
I
to
mean,
say
that's-
is
that's-
like say his Penguin lines. He's gonna write
The first bubble in that story is going to be wah 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 wah.
First bubble I'm hoping is like I played this city like a harp from hell.
I've actually never seen Batman Returns.
What?
Oh,
You're not missing
Oh.
anything.
I've never seen it in through.
It would
I've seen the
probably be-
ending where they carry him off.
I think it'd be
Spoilers
hard to go back to it. I don't
I mean, I just watched Batman '89 for the first time last year, and that
Did you
was
like it.
I liked it. It was fun for what it was, but it's definitely like comical. Like I can never get over the fact that like
that was a serious movie.
after
Was-
one day after the Joker became the Joker, he has merch for his goons and a logo. Like it's just so hilarious. Like,
Back in the day, those T-shirt companies worked pretty well. They worked really fast.
He also got Prince to write an album for him too.
right? Like, I want to see that movie where the Joker goes to Kinko's and gets some shirts printed, has a phone call with Prince.
He went to T Fury and got. You'd be surprised how fast they can work when you've got a fish pointed to your head. You know, you don't know your limits until you're in that situation.
Oh man! All right, Greg, it's up. It's your turn. You got some news for us. I like this one a lot.
The Substack, yes.
Yeah.
So news broke earlier this week that Substack has been working with Nick Spencer, who's current writer on Spider-Man, and a bunch of other top name comic creators, including Jonathan Hickman, James Trayon and a bunch of others, and I'm spacing on all the names just because I'm bad with names, to work on original comics for Substack that effectively turns them into an image competitor. But it also is a way for Substack to try to take a swing at growing their newsletter audience in a different fashion. So it's kind of a win for creators. It's a win for Substack. And it's interesting. You see some stuff popping up where people are getting annoyed because Substack allows people on of any opinion, and that can get into a gnarly point of view. But you also just have people that are like, I don't know what this means. Like, is this going to be cool? Is this not going to be cool? You had artists getting annoyed that they weren't getting solicited first instead of just all writers, because it's very much a writer-driven line. So it's interesting. It feels like it's one of those things that could be a really big thing. The other interesting point is that our creatives will get to keep their movie rights and keep their merchandising rights. So they're keeping all the stuff that could potentially monetize huge down the road. Substack is getting to keep a chunk of the change after a certain point in time. So there's money to be made for both sides. And for Substack, it's just trying to grow their brand. For these folks, it's an attempt to kind of do image without maybe the print costs per se. I'm curious. I don't know which way this will go.
Saladin Ahmed, Jonathan Hickman, Molly Ostertag, Scott Snyder, and James Tinian the fourth, with other writers. And some of them are saying, they're just going to do this exclusively. Tinian, he won an Eisner for his work on DC's Batman, and he was offered a 3-year renewal contract, and he turned it down because he feels he can make more money selling his own creative stuff on this platform, and owning it. You know what I mean? He gets to own everything.
And to go back to that right now, going back to an earlier topic on comics and comic movies, films, and everything else, the folks that have been able to sell in their property to some other medium have been making huge money, whereas the people that have done your Marvels and your DCs, they may make these kind of key stories, but they've all kind of said, look, the pay for that wasn't what they would have expected. You had everything from Tanisha Coates come out recently kind of like, hey, you need to pay these folks better. Like the Brubaker Winter Soldier thing that helped kind of like be a linchpin in all the Marvel MCU. Yeah. The dude has made it very clear, while he holds no grudges with any individual, he didn't feel like he got properly compensated. And I don't know what his compensation.
He turned down the check, actually.
For the $5,000 check?
He didn't take the check. We talked about that during Falcon and the Winter Soldier about Brubaker coming out about that and saying
I missed that
he actually chose to not take the money so that he could maintain the right to complain about it till the end of his life. But he was really frustrated. He was really frustrated to know that, like, at this point in his career, after he's created characters like the Winter Soldier and stuff, that he still has to worry about when he dies, how he's going to provide, for his family and stuff like that. Like, you would think that somebody who is famous for creating these characters or these epic storylines would just be set, but that's the way it is. You make contracts with these giant companies, and you give away you sell away the rights.
Yeah, no, for sure. You want to play with Captain America. At the end of the day, that's not your baby.
It's not your baby. Yeah, and even Bucky's not his baby, but the Winter Soldier is his baby.
Yeah, for sure.
And to be fair, like on the other side of this, yes, he could have stayed. He could have kept writing the character. You do, if you sell enough, you do make residuals. There's some writers like Dan Slott and others that actually make very, very good money off writing just 1 or 2 books because they're so high selling and such. But it's such a trade-off, and that made a lot more sense before the Hollywood and other medium implosion of comic properties. Now that is such a big deal, you're seeing a lot of these folks, especially these folks that built up their name around the Marvel and DC space, flip it and go into other mediums with their own creatives, like Netflix deals. Look at Mark Miller. He sold off his entire company, made a huge amount of money, and is able to now pump out a bunch of different shows tied to that. You have things like, what was it? The Umbrella Academy, a thing you never would have heard of. One of the better shows on Netflix. And now they're going into the 3rd season. And that was just a really kind of low, like kind of off in the corner, never knew about it thing. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, this is a thing that like the world now cares about. So it's hard to say that.
Oh, so is it too dissimilar from like the MCU? You get a no-name actor, no-name director, You give them the shittiest of contracts, they go make a $1 billion superhero movie, and then they have, you know, an open invitation to any audition that they want to do for the next 10 years of their lives. You know, it's like if you're a writer, you do a stint for a major superhero, you know, and then you can go sell your own thing 5-10 years later. You know,
Well,
does that have value, you know?
Yeah, usually these writers and stuff, they get the opportunity to go and sell their own stuff because they have an established following from the big named comics that they do. You know what I mean? So like that's Brubaker said that too. He got all these fans, and now he's off doing his own stuff because of that. You know, so
So I mean, I think that's a great point. Like you can build up your name in the mainstream stuff. You build it up on these characters running these great runs. And then you can turn around down the road and then make your own thing. And again, the Mark Millar thing's a great example. He built it up on these huge Marvel runs that then turned around and he made his own company, made his own IPs, made a ton of money with him and his co-creators, sold it to Netflix, made even more money. Like, and you're seeing more and more of those stories pop up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the McFarlane, right? He spun off his own thing, and now he's making toys, and now he's making toys for DC. Like,
well, and the thing is his toy empire, and then he turned around and Spawn's now the new #1 of Spawn, King Spawn. He says is selling something like 400,000, 500,000 units, which puts it in a top 10 comic in the last decade. I'm sure there's fuzzy math in there somewhere, like how they're counting covers and everything else.
Definitely fuzzy math.
But there's still something to be said for to get that kind of thing out of Spawn to where he feels like he's comfortably making money. I mean, that's kind of amazing. He's actually probably the last of the original Image 7 that could say that.
Yeah. I mean, other than Jim Lee, who's the president of DC.
But Jim Lee kind of flipped his thing in a whole totally different light in that and to be fair, Jay, actually, you're right, because he sold it to DC. He was able to sell his baby off to DC and then go back and work with the mothership. So yeah, you're right.
Yeah. All right. It's my turn.
Yep.
I think you guys know what I'm going to talk about. If I have my choice of news, it's my turn. My addiction. It's a Marvel Legend roundup. That's what Ricky's chosen to call it. I didn't bombard you guys this week with the usual. Here's all the links to all the things because I don't know. I feel like that's excessive, and I kind of like to surprise you maybe a little bit. But yeah, there's a new wave of Fantastic Four figures that was announced this week for Marvel Legends, and I broke down each one has its own little picture, so you can go through the slides if you want, Ricky.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a wave of 6 that are on retro card backs to make it look like the old school Toy Biz, like 1990s, based on the cartoon that was the Marvel Action Hour. But yeah, you got a Reed Richards, you got a Sue, and they're both in. I wouldn't say it's not their original costumes, but it's the iconic like Greg, is this like 80s and 90s costumes pretty much?
Yeah, this is like the 80s 90s run comic costume. I don't think those were. I'm trying to remember who the main writer would have been at that time. Not a Mark Waid.
You got Human Torch with his Jack Kirby little lines.
The Kirby lines, yeah.
The Kirby lines, yeah.
I like his like forearms too. The little flames on there is really cool.
Oh yeah, there's extra fire effects. Frank, what do you think of this thing?
What about him?
You want to talk undies?
Talk about the orange dong.
He does have new sculpted undies that are shorter. The previous thing figures had shorts, and this one actually has Speedos on.
Skies out, thighs out.
Skies out, thighs out. I've never heard that one before. He actually comes with 2 heads, one without teeth and one with teeth. They wanted to satisfy both groups of fans. That some people think the thing should not have actual teeth because his mouth should be rock also. So they did 2 versions of that. And then for the first time ever in the Marvel Legends line, it is Psycho Man. They have never made a Psycho Man figure. Whoa, where'd you go there? Yeah, he's a pretty cool looking figure. Frank, what do you know about Psycho Man?
Yeah, tell me about Psycho Man.
I don't know anything about Psycho Man.
Greg, what do you know about Psycho Man?
I am completely spacing on my Fantastic Four villains.
like-
I know him. I've read some stories with him. I know his powers are somewhat mental based, and I do not remember the ins and outs.
Yeah, I think he's
Bootleg Kang.
No,
What it looks like.
I like that. That's a good name. That's a good name for him. We lost Frank.
Yeah.
We will move on.
We lost the original Psycho Man.
I will. I promise to find a way to provide more information on that later. And then the last figure in the wave is the High Evolutionary. We've actually, this is an interesting one because we actually talked about him at the beginning of the year because in the comics, the High Evolutionary is tied to the origin of Wanda and Pietro Maximoff.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, this is also another one that they did that has never been made in the Marvel Legends line in like 20 years. They've never made a High Evolutionary. He created what's her name? Bova, the
Ox, right?
the nanny that took care of this guy. He's like Dr. Moreau for Marvel, pretty much. Is that a fair assessment?
He's also a little Mr. Sinister, but more for everything that's not mutants.
Yeah, he's a Mr. Sinister / Dr. Moreau because he likes to make animal people all the time, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then just to top it off, Hasbro actually put out 2 exclusive figures that you have to order off their website. They're like bonus figures for the wave. So this is a depowered Johnny. All of those fire effects are removable, so you can have him just look normal and standing around having coffee with everybody else. And then there is a translucent Sue, Invisible Woman.
Sorry.
And she is she's a thing. I don't know that I love this thing, but I see the niche appeal. Like there are people that just like translucent figures. I find it weird because you can see all the pegs and all the like the nuts and bolts that go into her, and it's weird.
So if my math is correct, you're already in the hole for around $200, right?
That's pretty bad math, but sure, we'll go for that.
Ricky amounts.
It's not horrible math, but yeah. And then just so that it's not completely Fantastic Four, they surprise announced a 3-pack of 90s goodness X-Force.
Wow. Cannonball, Domino.
And
I can't try to get a good look. Is that Warpath?
Here, I can make it bigger.
Oh, Richter.
It is Richter.
Huh.
First
He looked
ever.
like I thought it was Warpath, but then I noticed the green. I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
You'd have knives if it was Warpath.
The Warpath figure actually already got made last year, and he did not come with knives.
What does Richter do?
He fights vampires. He's actually.
By the way, people were pretty pissed that Warpath didn't come with knives last year. By the way,
coming in 2022, Warpath with knives.
Yeah, but this is the first Richter figure that they've ever made as well. So, but yeah, that's all Rob Liefeld inspired character designs and stuff. And so, say what you will, I do hate in general what is considered the talent of Rob Liefeld, but there was a specific moment in time where I was eating these comics up, and
his feet are too big.
I will say this about Liefeld, like of all his wonkiness, his X-Force stuff is the stuff that sort of holds up. You have Cable, you have Strife, you have a certain very talkative guy in a red suit that got bound, gagged, mailed back to Tolliver in New Mutants 98, and a whole bunch of other things that he did that actually did stand the test of time.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. He did create a lot of interesting things for the Marvel Universe. And then, this is my general daily update on the Galactus HasLab campaign.
I've been meaning to back this.
Run us through the numbers.
Just the quick numbers is we're still targeting way under the final goal of 14,000, but it's a lot better than it was a week ago. Basically, every time Hasbro has any announcement or any live stream, they seem to move the needle in the positive direction, obviously. So all they have to do is keep engaging with the audience and actually let us know what the hell the unlock stretch goals are. And I think you'll get a lot more backers. They really only have to cover about 1,600 extra people from where we are on target, and then this thing will be back. It's got about 17 days to go, so we'll see how this goes.
I have been meaning to back this, and I keep forgetting to do it. Like just for a variety of reasons. Like the times that I remember to go on, I haven't been in the point where I could put in my credit card info and set it up. I do have the Sentinel coming.
I have 3.
You have 3.
Oh my god!
You do have a problem, don't you?
I do have a problem. That's why we have a segment called Dennis's Problem. And that is it right there. I have actually not backed the Galactus yet because I've been having fun. I've been having fun just tracking all these things and showing people how poorly marketed this was versus the Sentinel. And so it's something fun for me. I'm hoping maybe like at the end, right at the wire, I'll be like, oh, there, I saved your asses and I backed it, but it's probably not
for the first time in my life. I have an actual like sizable desk at work. So I mean, big enough for a Galactus. There's a spot for a Galactus there, but I don't know. 400 is kind of a lot for
yes, it's a lot of money, especially in a pandemic for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I think that's all the news. There is just as always, we do have the comics for the new Marvel comics for the week. You want to run that really quick?
Let's run them.
Frank, were you paying attention to that one?
Nope.
Okay, that's cool.
Not in the slightest.
That's all right. We got to keep the show moving anyway. So I think Frank helped me come up with a great question of the week, and we kind of wanted to get this question going because it relates to the spotlight, the what if show that we watched this week. So I think it's kind of a fun, quick one that we can answer. Ricky, you got that question for us?
What was? Oh, whoa, that's a little weird.
You can do it. I believe in you.
What was your favorite comic book show as a kid versus your favorite comic book show as an adult?
Greg, do you want to go first? Guess goes first.
Comic show as a kid. I've been hemming and hawing on that. I kind of go back to the X-Men show that appeared in early 90s, I think it was, late 80s, early 90s, where the Wolverine meme came from and everything else. Like, it was one of the more coherent comic shows. I remember it was that and Spidey and His Amazing Friends were the two that I remember really well in terms of those shows. And then you had the old school Batman, and that was something too. But I think the X-Men kind of stuck with me more. These days, that one's trickier. I would say probably of the 3. Actually,
got a lot of good ones in the past years.
Don't get
I'm actually kind of say I think Umbrella Academy. I really enjoyed what they've done with that show.
That's a cool one.
It kind of feels like it captured the spirit of where the X-Men was in the kind of its heydays of the 90s, 2000s, like when it was just really crazy creative, when Grant Morrison was just throwing craziness at the wall. And you've seen a little bit of that, I think, in the last decade when Jason Aaron and Rick Remender had some time with it, and you've seen it with Hickman kind of building this big giant scaffolding of craziness that he's about to knock over with Inferno and whatever follows it. But I feel like that show's got a lot of the same thing, and the comics for it are just equally crazy in a different way. So I'll go Umbrella Academy.
I'm really bummed you picked Umbrella Academy because I wanted to pick that, and for the same reason that they differ from the comics so greatly, but they managed to keep the tone and keep it relevant to this day. So I think that's really cool. But
I think that's why
you can still pick that.
No. He picked it.
I mean,
it's gone.
For those same reasons, I like The Boys. Like in terms of current stuff, like that show deviates from the comics pretty, I would say significantly. But there's but they tie it back into a lot of current stuff, and it's probably some of the best parts of that show is how relevant it is in some instances. And I mean the Boys is probably in terms of like stuff that I'm like waiting to watch. Season 3 is coming out.
What about back when you were a younger kid?
Yeah, like 2 years
back
ago.
when I was a youngin', To be honest, I really didn't watch a lot of superhero shows as a kid. The only one that really sticks out to me is the X-Men animated show that came out right when the first movie came out. They were like all
Evolution?
yes, they're all like in high school or not high school, but they're younger.
That's X-Men
It is
Evolution. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
That's what I just said.
that show doesn't age as well as I thought it would, but it's okay.
You went
It's
back
okay.
and watched it on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I've been watching it on Disney Plus.
I have not watched it since I was a kid, but I remember following it.
The whole reason I've been trying to watch it is because I love the moment where after like a season or 2 seasons, 2.5 seasons, something like that, there's a moment where Rogue pops and she has too many personalities that she's absorbed, and she ends up absorbing Mystique, which allows her to change shape. And she has a mental break, and she starts turning into all the characters that she's ever touched in the history of the show. And she becomes this unstoppable force for like, that episode. And it's a pretty cool moment that like rewards people for how long they've been watching it. And I've been trying, and I'm like, I've been trying to watch it with Lindsay, and it's like, man, this is rough. Like it's a little, it's a little sexist at times, that show, but
it's funny. Like I remember liking and watching Batman, the animated show. But I remember when Batman Beyond came out, like I was like, why the fuck is Batman in the future? Like in my little 6-7-year-old mind thought, yeah, this is kind of dumb. Wow. I like my old Batman. Future Batman wasn't doing it for me.
Wow.
To be fair, Ricky, I felt the same thing about. Did you ever read like the 2099 comics, like Doom 2099, or I felt the same way about Doom. Like all the other ones, I was behind, like that weird reptilian Hulk and like Spidey.
There was a kid at my school who was super into comics, and I would get a lot of my comic like knowledge secondhand through him, and he would just show me drawings of like Spider-Man 99. I'm like, this is like the coolest shit ever. Like
2099.
And
they went back to year 0099.
Yeah, gotcha.
I never followed up with any of it, but I just remember being fascinated with like specifically Spider-Man 2099.
Well, most people were, and that's why he's one of the only ones that is really stuck over. He stood the test of time more than any of the others.
Punisher too, right? Punisher.
Yeah, they had a lot of them.
Soon to be played by Oscar Isaac in the Into the Spider-Verse sequel. So
yeah,
he's gonna play Punisher.
No, he already was. He already was him in the last.
That's weird. He played 2099 and he's going to Punisher. That's cool. Good for Oscar.
I mean, I'll sign up for Oscar Isaac Punisher. Sure.
No, I think he meant he's going to play.
He's going to play
Spider-Man 2099
again. Sign up. There's sign up sheets to actually play Oscar Isaac.
All right, I'm going to answer my question before we move on to the thing, because this is getting weird. I'm going to answer it. Lots of good answers. This is a really hard one for me. When Frank and I had the question earlier, we were kind of starting with cartoons, but like if we're going to open it up to everything, different stages of my life, I would say the first show that ever really hooked me, aside from Electric Company, when Spider-Man would show up for a brief few minutes in that one, I'd say the one that I was diehard addicted to when I was a kid was The Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby and Lou Ferrigno. That show, definitely that one and Wonder Woman.
That's what I was gonna pick. Freaking Bill Bixby, Incredible Hulk. Now I got to pick another one.
Yeah, that was my jam. I did also love Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, but like I think for me, like seeing a live action Hulk on screen as a kid just like blew my mind every week. Like it was the coolest thing ever. And then as a grown up, there's a lot of great content to choose from if you want to call me a grown up. But I was telling Frank, I was upsetting him a bit. But I would say above all other shows right now, my favorite is Harley Quinn, because that show dares to do what most shows would not do, which is just kill super important characters left and right and just take you on a ride that you've never really been on before. That show just leaps and bounds above everything else for me. Yeah. Frank, now what do you got left?
Now you guys took all my answers. Now I have to make something up off the cuff. So back in the day, The Flash, when The Flash came out in 1990 with John Wesley
Shipp. Yep.
Yeah, John Wesley Shipp. I thought that was an amazing show. In fact, I was so confused, and I was such a dumbass kid. I was like 9, and I was watching it, and I thought it was Ted Danson the entire time. In fact, like well into my 20s, I was all like, "Hey, do you remember that Ted Danson Flash show?" And they're all like, "There was never a Ted." And I'm all like, "There was. I assure you, there was." And it was not Ted Danson.
Yeah, he's the whole reason I watched Dawson's Creek for like years.
Oh, really?
Because the Flash was in it, and then and I told my friends, because my friends would make fun of me for watching Dawson's Creek, and I said, "Dude, I promise you, the day they kill John Wesley Shipp, I'm out."
Yeah.
And then one day they killed him. I stopped watching Dawson's Creek. I don't know what happened to the show. I have no idea.
I liked it, and then the special effects back in the day, and they had Mark Hamill as the trickster. I thought all that stuff was really cool.
No, he's great. Yeah.
Well, I'd be curious.
What's your show now? I was going to say.
Well, were we asking Ricky? What would you say?
Well, what did Greg think of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier? Cap fan number 1.
I mean, I really dug it. I thought it was really fun show.
Before we get to that, I know Greg can probably talk about a lot about Captain America, but let me finish this, and then
let him finish, Ricky.
Let me finish, Ricky.
All right.
I didn't know Ricky's question was going to be disruptive to the flow.
You didn't? You've been doing this for 30 weeks, man.
In Ricky time, that is 6 years. That is 16 years. Oh,
Answer your question. Answer your question.
Yes. I was going to say Doom Patrol, and I think that's a fantastic show.
It is.
But I'm gonna go with Gotham because I think that's a crazier answer. I think, and that's a hotter take.
That is a hot take.
Gotham dares to be ridiculous. Like it is the most ridiculous Batman show. It is like the Muppet Babies of Batman, but it's also like a combination of like all those day glow effects that were in Batman Forever. The whole I can't think of
they carved their own little space, and they're like, "This is us. This is our Batman universe. Deal with it."
Now I'll watch it because you described it as the Muppet Babies of Batman, and I've never heard that take. I'll give it another shot. I'll give it another shot now.
It is insane what they do with it, and every time you think they're like, "Oh, it's going like the standard formula. This guy's obviously going to be this guy." They do not do that. They subvert your
expectations. But he has a twin.
Yeah, exactly. They subvert your expectations in the funniest way possible. And nobody's there taking it serious. And it's just a good time if you don't take it too serious.
It sounds like you won't let us have Batman? Well, fine. We'll just fuck up our
Yeah. Here's the gray ghost, bitches. Yeah. Later.
All right. I do want to hear Greg's answer, but I almost feel like that's worthy of the soapbox because we didn't bring Greg here to talk about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. We brought him here to talk about What If, the first episode. So we should probably do that and then follow up on all the other things that we want to talk about.
What if Greg forgets his answer though? Like I was talking about.
I don't think he's going to forget his answer. I think he's got it. I think he's got it locked in there.
All right.
Yeah. Let's.
You want to take that risk, Dennis?
You might have to play the video.
Let's do the thing that we said we were going to do.
You might have to play the video.
This is easily the longest. Oh, I got to play the video? All right, yes. I'll play the video. It's cool. Don't worry.
My mouth.
Your mouse, did you say something happened to your mouse?
Yeah, I think my mouse just died. Yes.
No technical difficulties tonight, ladies and gentlemen. All right, it is time. You got anybody who's been watching. Thank you for hanging out with us for this long, but we have gone way longer than I thought we would. I had fun. That was fun talking about all that news though. But yeah, it's time to put the spotlight on episode 1 of What If that aired this week on Disney Plus. It's probably fresh on everybody's minds. It came out on Tuesday at midnight or Wednesday, depending on whenever you watch it. You've had some time to watch it. I'm pretty sure if you're here hanging out with us, you probably watched it. But just for a quick recap, what if the first episode was called "What If Captain Carter Were the First Avenger?" And it's basically a spin on what if Steve Rogers is seriously injured and instead Peggy Carter becomes the world's first super soldier. From then on, the events that we know from the MCU continue to unfold a little differently or significantly different, whatever, however you take it. But that's pretty much the idea of the What If comics. I grew up reading those comics. I loved them. They were something that was like a gateway for me, because even if I hadn't read like the 30 or 20 some years of history of a comic, I could go read a What If and just pick it up and be like, oh, that's a cool, interesting story, because they kind of make you aware of what the correct story is first before they tell you, here's this weird, trippy one. So I don't know, like I'm assuming Greg and Frank, you also used to read those comics as well, or still do?
Yeah, still love them. I think I like the Civil War one. That was a big heart wrencher, I think, for me. Came out in 2008, 2007, something like that.
Yeah, and Greg?
Yeah, so What Ifs, like, they've come and gone over the last 30 years. There's been some runs of them were great, some runs of them where I've been like, it could be better.
Yeah.
Offhand, I'm not placing any like super memorable ones, but it was always usually like, what if this major story went a different way? What if the villain won this story? Like, what if, this character had this person's powers? And then you'd go kind of down this what if rabbit hole, literally what if rabbit hole. And what I think makes it interesting now is at the end of Loki, Marvel kicked the door open to a Marvel multiverse, and this is opening the door to something that can now sit within kind of it's what if, but it's also what if, and it kind of can play in the wider Marvel tapestry, which is a bit different, because what ifs in the past have always been hypothetical. That is it. What if?
Yeah.
Like, we're not doing that multiverse crossover thing here. That door in theory is open, even if Marvel hasn't said it is.
Well,
yeah, they actually have said it is. They've said it's canon.
What if characters in the past have come over, have crossed the threshold into?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've had a few.
Yeah,
but
they've had a few that were so successful, right?
Yeah.
Can you name any? I can't remember which ones.
Spider Girl. May
was
Parker,
it Spider?
I think it's,
May was.
Mayday Parker. Yeah,
you're right.
That was.
Right.
She's probably
hers was interesting because she didn't really cross over into canon at first. She just kept her own world, kept spinning, and I have all those books back at my dad's house, and it was a remarkably good run. It was one of the better Spidey books for a long time. It got a little old and long in the tooth near the end, but she never actually came over to the proper 616 Marvel universe. She stayed in her own little corner of the world, and I think they eventually did a small crossover somewhere, if my memory serves. But that was about it.
She's in Spider-Verse. She's in Spider-Verse. Both of them. Both of the Spider-Verses, right?
Was she?
The Spider-Verse and Spider-Geddon. She's in both of them.
Spider-Geddon, yeah.
Yeah, she's in both. Yeah.
Yeah. Wait, did she? Oh wait, yeah. Okay, wait. Yeah, I think she's in there. I'm trying to think.
She's in both. I'm positive.
What's her role in Spider-Geddon? That was what I'm wondering.
Damned if I remember. There's so many.
Frank, are you drinking a Monster at 9 p.m.? Fucking animal.
I don't sleep till like 4 a.m. anyway. So
don't judge him. But anyways, so the reason I asked you guys if you did read the comics is because I was curious before we get into, I want to know for sure what Ricky's thought on this, because I know this is not something that he grew up with. But I'm curious, how close to the source material did this episode hit for you? You can go first, Greg. Sorry.
In terms of the source material of What If comics, I felt it hit the vein of that pretty nicely. In terms of the source material of, Captain America, the first Avenger, I thought it was mostly in line. I thought there were a couple of things that felt a little bit didn't quite line up, but by and large, I thought it lined up reasonably well, and it twisted fate in the way I would have expected the comic to twist fate. If the comic had done this story, had taken all these pieces without knowing anything about the film, I think they would have landed in a similar spot on the big character beats. Some of the specific action, probably not.
It's a pretty good assessment right there.
Well, how do you know that's a good assessment?
That's what I feel.
Frank, since you're somebody who also read the books, what do you think about this, about the show so far?
I feel like it's a good assessment. I think the show is a good assessment. No, I thought it was great. I think I was talking to you about Exiles, where they have a version of Captain Carter. It's like Peggy with the shield. But she's not I don't think she has the serum in her, if I'm not mistaken, but she's like plucked out of her timeline. And that's what this episode was kind of reminiscent of. They took that concept and dialed it up to 11 and had her like jumping over stuff and kicking motorcycles and
fighting Dame.
Yeah, fighting Dame. But I thought it was cool. But I don't think I thought it was good. I think she's supposed to be the flagship hero of What If. I've heard something about there being like some kind of overarching story.
Yeah, so that's what I was curious about. Like, what if you guys know about that, or if you saw this as the pure anthology that it so far it's presented itself as.
I hope that it does that it remains like an anthology, and then we think like, oh man, it's going to be an anthology, everything's different, and then last couple episodes, boom, they pull out like a What If Endgame, and like pull out.
Oh, that's totally on the cards. That's like in the trailer.
But even go further than that and like put in like an animated Sylvie, an animated Loki, maybe Wanda or the White.
Oh, I mean, I say go further and put a Captain Carter in the movies.
Okay, I'd be cool with that. Like they could do the Peter Jackson Hobbit thing with her, except in reverse.
So I don't know I don't know how many of you guys have seen this, but this was in the trailer.
Yeah.
Yeah, they showed that.
And so
like Captain Carter talking with Ian.
With Ian.
No, that's strange.
Yeah. So that so as far as I know, the Doctor Strange centric episode of What If is supposed to be the 9th episode of the season. So from what I've seen in interviews and stuff, their plan actually is to present it as an anthology, but also do an somewhat of an interconnective story in which they want Peggy to be the anchor that we relate to and that we can come back to every now and then. So if this show is planned to have a second season already, and they do want to at least once every season come back and revisit Peggy. So that is in essence different already from what If normally does. But I don't know that I dislike that, because I think in general the MCU has been doing things slightly different than what the comics do all the time, right? So why not? Why not do something more meaningful with What If? And then I know probably should have warned people, but I mean, at this point, spoilers, right? Like, this is not in this episode, the thing I just showed you. So this is from the trailer, so we haven't spoiled that. But we will be spoiling the episode if you haven't seen it. But just before I get into the rest of the episode slides, there is this promotional material that also has been leaked, that has gone out to different vendors and stuff. And this to me suggests that there actually is going to be something, because you guys, we all know, I mean, Ricky doesn't necessarily, but the rest of us know the Watcher Uatu as this awesome character that is supposed to only show up and observe the biggest moments in the Marvel universe, right? But the reality is like, usually the fun of Uatu is like he does the exact opposite of that, right? Like every time something is really big that threatens the fate of the galaxy, he does the exact opposite of what he's supposed to do, and he actually intervenes. So the implication is that he might be assembling a group of people from different multiverses. And like Ricky said, I would love to see if they actually translate this into the live action. But I mean, how much of this did you know going into this?
Me?
Yeah, sure, you or any of you.
I mean, yeah, I follow spoiler stuff pretty heavy, so I was pretty in tune to what it seems like the direction they're going with this. I'd just be curious and see how they follow through. You know, I think it would just be a shame to see this stuff be isolated to its own animated universe. I hate saying like it legitimizes it, but like it would be a really neat feat for them to pull off, like transition this back into the live action stuff, like for sure. Not necessarily, I don't think we'll get like a multiverse team up movie for obvious reasons, like with the ScarJo stuff and the T'Challa situation. Like it's it's just not a feasible possibility. But to see like a Captain Carter or bring back Gamora, some other evil Gamora or whatever. I think it was in the trailer. That'd be kind of cool.
What hit the most? Like Greg, you were mentioning earlier that there was some stuff that kind of you didn't like about the action. Like what was that you were thinking of specifically?
So the things, by and large, I really dug this. I thought they did a great job. I thought they played up Peggy Carter as like a perfect person to jump into this. Really embraced having the super soldier serum, being Cap, being the hero, kind of throwing up a middle finger to everyone that said as a woman she couldn't do any of those things. I did find it a little funny when she was overly reckless. She was not a character that was reckless. She was a character that'd be aggressive. She was a character, but she was always calculated. So like when she takes the shield and runs towards a Jeep, and then afterwards, like, I didn't know that was going to work. Like, she's not going to do that. She would have thrown the shield. She would have used the shield to cut it. She wouldn't have battering rammed a thing and not known if she could take the hit. That's just not in her character.
She didn't actually say, I didn't know I could do this. She said that was brilliant. Like she
actually said, I believe it was more like, I didn't know if that would work.
I mean,
and I just remember as soon as I heard that, it was like, wait, what?
In regards to that scene, it was just a little odd to me. Like she's essentially talking to herself. It's not just like a calm.
Well, it was funny because like you never talk to yourself. I mean,
it felt a little that specific scene felt probably the most cartoonish out of that entire episode. Like the car flip, although it was cool, was like that just.
I don't like your tone, Mister. What does that mean when you say that?
My baseline is if I didn't see Cap do it in the movies, like
wow,
how could she like? I didn't. Has Cap ever flipped a truck like that?
You know what? I think you just stumbled upon one of my favorite things about this episode. You are associating them as equal in strength, but if you're remembering correctly, Cap is a scrawny little dude with like a lot of health problems when he gets the serum. Peggy is a physically fit human being.
She's a fighter.
And she's a fighter.
She knows how to fight.
I got the impression that she is significantly stronger than Cap because of those reasons. Did you get that, Frank?
I did. That's why I think she looks bigger than Cap, actually.
She's huge.
And
she's huge.
And I'm totally okay with it. I'm totally okay for her to be like on like a She-Hulk level because, like you said, she was already physically fit and trained in the military.
Yeah.
Whereas Cap is just like a little boy. Like think about this, Ricky. Like, could
the
Peggy
physics
Carter
of that car flip just made no goddamn sense.
What the hell? You again?
We're talking about a vibranium shield in the mix here, though. So like,
yeah,
like I kind of took it as, Red Skull had the super soldier serum, and he was not stronger than Cap, and he was also military fit. So I took it as she's the same strength level, but she knows how to fight. She knows how to do things. Like you watch her doing a lot of the moves. They're things Cap never embraced until. He got a lot of training. Like at first he was very vanilla, very basic because that's what he knew. She's like, nope, I'm doing jumping spin kicks using the shield and doing and she got really adept really fast. And that felt like her character. It to me, it was less about whether she's stronger or weaker. I could see her being stronger. I could see it kind of being a relative baseline, give or take. To me, it was more like she really embraces it. She knows what she's doing with it, where Steve had to learn everything at hello. She's like, nope, I'm trained. I know how to do it, and I am very willing to go in there and kick your teeth in.
Oh, for sure.
By the way, Greg, her line was, "That was brilliant. Let's give it another go."
I could have swore when she made. I just remember that really rubbed me the wrong way.
I know. I read that from your feedback, and I thought it was funny.
There is another scene where she says something like that, but like it's.
I mean, I don't want to shit on the episode all day. But like I really enjoyed the setup, and I hope it continues through with the entire series of how Uatu presents the show. He leads the UN, and then there's that pause, and this is the moment. Like I really liked the setup of the episode a lot, and just
But
Yeah.
with our explanation, are you willing to concede that maybe just because Steve didn't
I
do
will
it?
say she's a better fighter. That I get, but the truck flip is just a little.
As a reminder, the Hulk is a byproduct of trying to recreate the super soldier serum.
I can believe if the Hulk did that, no problem. No problem.
So you're saying only the Hulk is allowed to do that?
But he's saying if She-Hulk did it, he'd have a problem with it. Like She-Hulk can't do that.
The physics of the truck flip just a little odd to me.
I very much believe she could have done it. I don't believe she would have tried to find out she could do it for the first time in a firefight.
To me, I felt like it was. To me, it felt like it was one of those things where sometimes, like you just see something and you're like, I could lift that. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it felt like she was doing something that she was fairly confident she could pull off. And that's why she did it. And then she was so impressed with herself. She's like, let's do it again.
Yeah, no, and after she did it once, it totally made sense. And everything else she did, every other move, everything else, I thought was great. That one to me, it felt like it was out of her character, whereas everything else in the show felt like it was her character dialed in.
Cap didn't take Thor's hammer down in the Avengers 1 minute after picking up the shield. I'm trying to think where I'm going.
Well, as a reminder, she'd already been training before she went out on the field, and she's already a well-established, trained military person. Like Cap was not. Cap was not in the military.
Hey man,
for more than,
we got half an episode of Falcon training with the shield.
No, but I'm saying
I don't see Peggy training with the shield.
So you missed all the weights that she threw at the wall?
Yeah, she knew how to throw it. Like her using the shield, her throwing the shield, everything like that totally made sense.
And they showed it earlier in the episode.
Yeah, her battering ram something huge was where it's like, And again, it's not even her strength. It's just like I just don't see that character as they've written her having been willing to do that.
Yeah,
but her scene with Steve in the air, that was beautiful.
That was probably my favorite thing ever in the entire episode.
That one take shot, and she's just wrecking Nazis in the sky.
So you're okay with her doing that, even though we never saw Cap do that?
Yep. We saw Cap crash a plane
because the physics of this makes perfect sense.
Hey, I could believe that more than I could believe her flipping a truck.
For me, as she got more skilled,
the G forces on her flying through the air and grabbing on there, that would be insane amount.
Yeah,
G-force right there.
Yep.
This would be almost like lifting a truck.
I don't know how she would breathe in that atmosphere,
but really quick though. Like it'd be like a jerk moment that might pull her arm out of socket, even powered or not. But but that's cool and not the car.
I enjoyed it. I didn't love it, and I think I didn't like it because.
Well, you went from not loving it to not
I think I didn't love it because I kind of wish they would have left Steve out of it.
Really?
Honestly.
Why? Why?
Like I didn't like the idea that their stories still had to be intertwined.
But it's their love story.
That's quite romantic, honestly, is that their story transcends the multiverse.
In my mind, where I saw it going was in that moment when Steve
gets the powers,
when Steve gets shot, right? I would have liked Howard, that been more of a turning point for Howard to become more of a hero figure, and a fighter rather than someone who just builds the tech.
But that's not in his character. That's never.
But seeing Steve die could have changed his character.
Well, he doesn't care about Steve. He doesn't even know Steve.
Steve would be the guy that stays in it. Like him staying in it and being a proto Iron Man, I think was way more interesting than sending Tony in or sending Howard in. Sorry.
I just want to remind you, he saw a lot of people die besides Steve, and that didn't prompt him to do anything.
It changed him. It made him date Hedy Lamarr.
He was
no, he dated her beforehand. He saw Tommy Lee Jones die. Look at that.
God.
And that made him a better button pusher.
Yeah, exactly. He's the button pushing guy. I mean, you could argue that he was
you
more
think
of
they
a
asked
hero
Tommy Lee
because
Jones to reprise his role for this?
God
I
no.
think Bradley Whitford was fine, like because Bradley Whitford was actually in the one shot that they did of Agent Carter.
Yeah.
Tommy Jones' character didn't say a line. He didn't say a single line.
No, this was his moment right here where he gets shot.
Tommy
And
Lee
that's it.
Jones do some ADR.
Yeah, that's it. But I think Howard was more of a hero than he was in the original story, though, because he actually went out on the front line with them. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So like he did get a more heroic story. You know, like from my wife's point of view, when she watched this, she's like, "Oh, so basically everything's better if Peggy got the serum." And in a lot of ways, she's not wrong.
No,
Peggy
yeah,
was
you're right.
better.
Well,
Steve got to.
Shield
Steve,
doesn't get founded though, presumably.
Oh.
well,
Bucky doesn't go crazy.
unless Steve found Shield. You know.
Oh, what a twist!
Well, see, the thing that's
guess
interesting
Bucky-
now is
Someone's
less
got to
about
found
this,
Shield, though, right? Sorry.
but more what are they going to do with all of the pieces? Like knowing that they're going to come back to her, knowing that she's coming back into the world as a person out of time. What's going to happen now? Like, to me, it would be really interesting. What if Steve becomes like the Winter Soldier type, and he's the guy that got captured and gets augmented, and then you throw them at each other, and they're on equal footing in somewhat different ways? Well, that would be very different,
That's what
and
I
that would be
full
very
on,
in line with how that relationship worked.
I was full on expecting that to happen when Steve got captured. I thought
Same. Like I was immediately like, oh, we're going to Winter Soldier him. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And I still think they might do it, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see him super soldiered up with all of the same stuff, or you could see him fully teched up.
I would go a different route. Like I would make him still like little guy, but like with a big ass arm, like one big ass arm. That's just metal.
I mean, there's a lot of ways they could do it, but it would play the story up in such a different and unique way.
Yeah.
And kind of plays into everything.
Crimson Dynamo.
Well, I think the cool thing is that they have said that their plan is to check in with Peggy every now and then. So like we might get more of her story that's a parallel to what we saw Steve's story be, but just in different ways. But I mean, I would say with this slide right here, this scene, it would suggest that Shield in some capacity still exists, right?
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. But also what I was going to say was that like, doesn't Nick Fury have like a Shield patch or something on his
I don't see the
jacket?
patches. Hawkeye has a patch on his
Not
chest,
on,
too.
not on the jacket. I don't think he has on the jacket.
Hawkeye
But you know what?
definitely does that.
Yeah,
Shield was kind of below ground until after the first Avengers, and then after that, Shield became a bigger deal. Like
that's true.
They were kind of a total behind the scenes player, and that was their coming out party.
Yeah, you're right.
Well,
it was kind of after this.
One of the big selling points of this show is that the fact they got most people from the movies to reprise their roles, and one episode in, did that work for you guys? You know,
I don't care either way, to be honest.
okay.
Like the one they needed the most is Peggy Carter. Like they got her, and that all worked. Like her, and I'm spacing on the name because I'm bad with names, but like that
Haley
character has always.
So Selena had this cool question, which she said, "Why do you expect them to still have the same character, even though they're in a different universe?" Well, that's actually explained by the Watcher at the beginning of the episode, right? Is that he's specifically looking at a universe that up till that moment was exactly the same as the universe that we knew. But in that choice that she makes, that's the slight difference that's the catalyst for everything that happens after, right? And so,
and also, if you go ahead.
Sorry, no, I'm curious to see what you have to add to that.
I was also going to say, even if you go back to Loki and you listen to Kang and you listen or Immortus or whatever version of him,
He who remains. He who remains.
He who remains. We'll say that, even though, but yeah. He talks about all these different versions of himself and how all of them kind of had some consistency of character. You have how many different variants of Loki, all having some consistency and variance of character.
Right.
So you'd have that kind of, it plays into the next step, which is you two telling you like, hey, these are worlds that all played up to a certain point. Then you had an arc and pivot, and it's how that character behaves with a different set of circumstances. That was always the heart of What If, is you're changing one thing and seeing where the dominoes fall.
Right, exactly. And Selena's saying, honestly, I think I would have loved to see Steve Rogers hold a grudge after Peggy took the serum. But I'm saying, as interesting as that sounds, like if that's still the same Steve that we knew from the first 30 minutes of the first Avenger, what about that character would do that? You know what I mean? Like, so I think the whole fun of What If is that in this sense, in What If is similar to what Greg's saying, is that they've built 13 years worth of stories, and they're leaning into it and saying, okay, you know these stories the way we told them. So when we change one tiny thing, like Greg said, how do the dominoes fall? You know, so I think it breaks the story. It breaks the concept of the show if we start assuming that everybody's going to behave out of character because something changed. You know what I mean?
But the flip side to that is, like, assuming we come back to the story is, well, let's see if something happened to Steve. I mean, Steve's been bullied his entire time until he gets the powers. What if he's put in a position where the bullying finally makes him snap, then he gets powers, and then he takes it out that way? I could see that being a place where he lands
later,
but that wouldn't be a place where he starts.
Exactly.
That's why, to me, it's really interesting if they put him, like, if these dominoes sent him down some kind of Winter Soldier-y path.
Yeah.
Not necessarily the same way. And you either build him up where he's like snaps back at people bullying him his whole time, or something else, and you kind of flip that whole dichotomy on its head. But it's still, how do these characters behave when you're putting them in these situations?
Right. But the days and weeks right after the moment, the catalyst, those should still fall pretty in line with the character. But when we go revisit them 70 years in the future, the sky's the limit on what they want to do. You know what I mean? Like, if they want to make Steve evil, that's cool, whatever, but like, I think that, the fans deserve to see, at least for a small part, because, like, the assumption is, like, yes, when you say I would have liked to see this, and this, that's assuming that this is done, that this story is done, but it's not. There's going to be more, there's going to be a lot more. So, Coker has a question for us. Steve wasn't famous as Captain Rogers, so why was she Captain Carter? Did they address that and I missed it, or am I stupid for asking? Should we just call him stupid, or?
Yeah.
I think if I remember correctly, she made it a point to call herself that when what was it?
After
like her commanding officer was giving her shit.
Yeah. She demanded that rank from
she demanded the rank, but honestly, also there was sexism at play, right? Because they made the joke about, like, you're lucky they didn't make you go do the USO tour.
Yeah.
Right. So because she wasn't a man, they didn't send her out to do the USO tour, and instead they kept her in hiding. So he got to be called Captain America reluctantly because, that's what he had to be called when he was selling, stamps and shit like that. But, like, she just demanded they call her Captain. In fact, she demanded an increase to her rank when Flynn said, "You're an agent, you can't be on the field." Well, then you need to promote me. How about Captain? That sounds pretty good. So that's how. You're not stupid, and you're definitely not stupid for asking. We love it when people ask, and thank you for joining us, Coker. And Selena, thank you for your questions too. I'm curious. By the way, Ricky, you did bring up something that I did want to. I don't want to be that guy that gets mad at them for not pulling it off, but you mentioned how they pretty much got everybody. The one that hurt was just a little bit.
Josh Keaton.
Was Josh Keaton. Like, I liked him. He was passable, but God, I just kept thinking to myself, this would have hit so much better if that was Chris Evans, because Chris Evans and Haley Atwell have such an amazing chemistry.
I feel like I think the New York accent.
Was it thick? I don't know. Was it a thick New York accent?
It was a little exaggerated, but, like, the thing that got me was, like, he played Iron Man in the Iron Man VR game. So, like, he played the two. So I thought that was kind of funny. But, like, I would hear certain bits of RDJ come out in his performance of Steve. And I'm like, I don't know. It was kind of wonky at times, but I accepted it. It was fine.
What'd you guys
expect from a cartoon?
What'd you guys think of Jeffrey Wright as a Uatu?
It's great.
It's fun.
I couldn't understand him half the time. It reminded me of Tom Hardy Bane.
What?
He's fine.
What are you saying?
He'll make a great Commissioner Gordon next year too. So,
but I mean, you say that as someone that watches the subtitles, Dennis, liking Jeffrey Wright. I think
that's fair.
Yeah,
that's fair.
I didn't understand half of what he said. I had to go back and put on subtitles on my second viewing.
Yeah. By the way, Coker did say what up to Greg Phillips, not to the rest of us, just to you.
Yeah,
What up, Coke?
I actually dug him because I thought that I think when I used to read these comics, that's how they started, right? With the Watcher giving his little intro and then reminding you at the end.
Beginning.
Yeah, and then reminding you at the end, I am the Watcher and stuff. And so,
as the Watcher, I ask,
yeah,
what if
and
Hulk beat Spider-Man or something.
And it's funny because when I read them as books, I never really processed that like this is pretty much the Rod Serling introduction to Twilight Zone.
That's all it is.
When I saw it on TV, I was like, well, this is absolutely the Twilight Zone, you know? Yeah.
You know, now that I'm thinking about it, it might be because like as a musician, drummer, etc., I might have lost certain abilities to hear certain tones. So when people have like a deeper voice or like some kind of raspy voice, like I have a lot of trouble hearing.
Diagnosing Frank's hearing.
Yeah,
maybe we are.
We're gonna be on the couch right now on the couch. It all started when I was 5.
Maybe we are. I guess we've talked about it. Well, I don't know. I talked about it, and I think I just want to make sure. Did everybody talk about what they liked the most about this one?
We talked about what Ricky liked the least about this.
No, I like the intro. I like the Twilight Zone setting or setup on how they do it. I really did enjoy that.
What was your second choice for things that you liked? What's a close second?
The close second, I liked how when she defeated the Red Skull, her getting sucked in that portal to what we kind of know as the moment from the Avengers when that portal opens. I really like them looping it back to that. It's kind of cool.
You didn't like when she flipped a car in a feat of strength, but you did like it when she went away.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting, Ricky. Interesting.
Car flip was just.
Did anybody else dig the passive body positivity that was in this episode? Where like they didn't make fun of Carter for how giant she was, and they never made fun of Steve for how little he was for the whole episode. And those two were just allowed to have their romance, even though they had very crazy proportions to each other.
I could take it or leave it, but that seems pretty unlikely that they would not get flack for that. Like,
yes, I know, and that's why I'm saying I thought it was cool and probably intentional that they didn't choose to show us, them getting flack for it.
They laid on the sexism.
What was that, Greg?
I was going to say they would have given, if this were a longer thing, they would have given Steve the Howling Commandos would have given Steve grief. They wouldn't give her grief because they saw her kick the crap out of everyone and be like what was it? Dum Dum was like after watching like, who are you? And she kicks the shit out of the guy. He's like, I'm good.
No, we're good.
Yeah.
They're not gonna mess with her. They might tease her a little bit, but they would never. And they were never the type that would be hardcore like mess with anyone. They might just do 40s era military teasing. And so again, if it were just Steve, they probably would have messed with them a little bit. Like,
but I caught that they chose not to show that.
But they also didn't have much time to show that. Like if it were like a 2-hour movie, they would do like the Richard Donner that's making fun of them in the diner thing.
That's fine. I'm just going off what I got, and they picked and chose what they should show and what they don't need to show. And so I appreciated the brevity of it, and that they just went through like the greatest hits of Captain America: First Avenger. And I gotta say, honestly, like I like the action in this better than the action in Captain America: First Avenger. I give that movie a lot of grief because like all of the action is pretty much in montages. Even her montages were cooler than Steve's were. You know what I mean?
I can appreciate them showing Steve using I think he's using like a walker at one point, even while he's like the Hydra Stomper. I thought that was really,
dude.
That was a bigger touch.
Do you know how that hit me? Like
how
13 years, and that was the closest thing that we've had to a disabled superhero in this story. I don't count freaking War Machine because that guy's walking perfectly normal by the end of like he gets fully paralyzed.
He only had one leg brace movie in his contract.
like for like 5 minutes, no, 5 seconds, just a Tony Steak joke is the all that we see him doing the bracelet.
Also, they didn't have their tone yet set up by the time they released the first Avenger. Like that was their third movie.
Yeah, for sure. Hindsight's totally 2020.
Yeah.
They had like I'm in no way knocking the first Avenger. Honestly,
what I'm saying is but what I'm saying is that of course they're going to have sharper fighting scenes and choreography and cinematography.
And I appreciate it. It's
also,
cool.
Also, to Frank's point, like, oh, go ahead, Greg. Sorry, I don't cut you off.
I was just gonna say, just going back though, Peggy is a different character. She's more of a fighter. She's trained. She knows what she was doing. They played up on that really to sell the contrast, whereas Steve was learning how to do everything, like him accidentally figuring out like, oh, the shield will bounce off stuff, that's cool, all these other things, like he figured this stuff out slowly because he was learning how to do all this and was given the power. She took it and embraced it.
But I meant they gave more time to actually showing the action too, like in
they were playing to her strengths.
Well, that's fair. That's fair.
Steve also had one component going into the super soldier program, and that's his heart, his spirit. That's pretty much it. Everything else
I just wanted to see Nazis get their asses kicked in that first movie because that was really the only time we're ever going to see it, right? Like that was our only chance to see Nazis get their butts kicked, and then they just got montaged. I don't care what degree, what extent that he's kicking their asses. We know that no matter how trained he is, he can kick the crap out of Nazis, and they glossed over it pretty fast in that movie. And that's why I appreciated that this went a little deeper.
They did World War II movie reel type stuff. Like they definitely played into the era piece big time in the original movie, which is one of the things I love about it. Whereas this, they definitely played it more like it was more modern to Frank's point on they've got their tone down, but they also played it more like a modern 30-minute zippy through. We're not going to hit the montage shit. We're not going to hit the war feel.
But we still got montages.
Like, to Frank's point, like if this were a movie, I would have at least like some explanation of like why. Like, to be fair, like someone with a disability or with that's injured like Steve is just not going to waltz away with like that type of military, like still be enlisted in the military, you know?
I don't know that he was enlisted in the military.
You're talking like a $1 million wound or whatever?
Yeah, like
he'd get sent home like after.
Yeah, I don't know that he was officially in the military at that point. Like I think he could.
Wasn't he? He was training with the others.
He would have been training up to that point. He would have been in the military. They might have wanted to kick him out, but you figure if he was the one person that could kind of like help Peggy and kind of keep her from wanting to rip everyone's head off, they would keep him around as like a
consultant or something.
You know, playing 40s era, like for a second, they'd have been like, yo, keep her in line type deals. Like that would exactly be what the military brass of that era would do.
You know, I just thought of a better reason actually, because that armor was pretty big, but maybe you needed someone of like slight stature to be able to fit into it.
I was totally going to bring that up. Like maybe like slide in a line about that, you know, but again, it's, I think they made smart choices with deciding what to show in their 30-minute slot.
Yeah.
So I do have to ask before we go, I know, did you guys get vibes of this when you watched it?
No, I could pull up another picture of the vibes I
got. Vibes from something different, but that's an interesting one. There was a Hydra series, a Shield series that kind of went into the origins of Shield and Hydra.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. That was in the Agents of Shield show.
Well, it was a Hickman series, like a long form thing, but it got into like how Hydra had all of those types of things, and that was kind of they've dovetailed that into different pieces, and I've seen like different pieces of Hickman stuff getting picked up. So I immediately went to that thing, like that particular version of it. It's like, oh, we're gonna do we're doing that version of Hydra going into this versus like more military kind of clandestine Hydra. That was to me weird though, like. Just the entire thing, like, okay, you've got your dimensional portal open and you opened it there. That's just such a weird twist to me.
It was a different thing for the Red Skull for sure, but then I remembered, in this version of the story, he doesn't have Arnim Zola like by his side because Peggy so like wrapped that up so quickly, right? So he went in a completely different direction. I would like to point out like the one thing that was they kind of cheated, right? Because if they say that the one difference in their universe was Peggy deciding, whether to stay, or go. If you look at when the Red Skull has the big wall of Yggdrasil, the button on that one is actually made to look like a Shumagorath type creature on the animated version. But I actually did go back and rewatch the scene from the original, and it doesn't look like that at all. It looks like roots on the tree.
Maybe
for sure.
if Peggy gets the super soldier serum, it changes the door. Like, depending on who gets the serum, it makes the door look different.
But the old guy there is like, I got to change this. Yeah, I don't know why.
The way I took it was maybe there was an alternate version of that story where they considered doing a Shumagorath type thing that came through the portal, and they just decided for budget reasons, maybe like that, let's not do that or something, because I thought that worked really well. Like Ricky was saying, is like that was easily an equatable and sleeker way of bringing her into the future, right? Is having her like I always really hated that like the movie doesn't give a good reason for why he doesn't jump out of the plane after he's pointing it down at the water, you know what I mean? Like he could
put the fucking club on that shit.
Exactly. Like, he could do
even
it.
Tommy Lee Jones did that.
He didn't think to do it, but so I like the idea of this could be Shumagorath, and maybe we'll see more Shumagorath again in the future. I think there's rumors that he might be in Multiverse of Madness. I don't know.
I mean, I took it more of like as a bummer that the final boss was a vessel to get her to where they need her to be in the story versus like, I guess more of an Easter egg type deal, like an actual nameable thing,
Wait, what would you have wanted in that situation, Ricky?
What was that?
What would you have wanted in that situation?
I don't know, just some beast that you can recognize and pinpoint.
What would you want her to do with it, if not to get to the next part of the story?
I would say the same. You can do the same thing. I just would have wished they would have had a monster that we
had
knew.
A name tag.
Yeah, they had a name tag for sure.
I would actually say
had a name tag.
One disappointment was I thought that they undersold Red Skull a little too much, and like there wasn't much to her dealing with Red Skull, and that was I think one of the few spots where I was not a fan of the show, because it felt like, all right, you have him, he's one of the best villains there, you put him in a different spot, that should make him more interesting, and he kind of got overwhelmed by a giant squid or like a monster thing, and it's like, well, that was kind of like underwhelming, whereas he was kind of that most interesting of the first wave Marvel villains. Okay, I guess you can technically say Loki was, but really he was like the most interesting of the first wave, like pure villains, and really he's still one of their best, like top 5 of the movie villains. So to not do something interesting with him when you had him on the table again, to me feels like a mistake.
I mean,
but it
in
did
the
help,
movies, he's in that breakout
scene,
that Bucky breakout scene too, and it wasn't really, he wasn't really there.
But she didn't break Bucky out at the same time that Steve did, though. Like, she presumably did it faster and better.
For the sake of getting this story down to 30 minutes, like something had to be sacrificed, and if somebody ends up being, if those somebodies are Tommy Lee Jones and the Red Skull, so be it.
Well, Hugo Weaving
wasn't coming back.
Well, that's why I said.
He said ages ago he didn't want to come back. So like that, I mean, that probably played into it. And honestly, they've made it clear they're not going to bring a version of Red Skull back into play. So it's like, other than at the end of time or at the to deal with the Soul Stone, that's kind of his pen. It's like, okay, cool. You wanted to go off and screw up with time and space. You get to sit here and.
But isn't he free to leave now that the stone's returned?
Who knows? Who knows with Marvel?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought it was in poor taste that they had Shumagorath write "fuck Hugo Weaving" in bold letters on the wall. Like, I thought that was in poor taste. I was like, Disney, what are you doing here?
Oh man. Okay.
The one thing that I did wish that they did do was have her. I wanted her to say the exact thing that Steve said when he realizes that he misses his date on Saturday, or he missed his date on Saturday. I was hoping she would say the exact same line. That's the only thing that I would have wanted. But other than that, she did the thing with the punching, and this is my favorite part because I don't think I talked about it, but is when she was punching the heavy bag, and she punched it off the thing. I'm all like, yes. I'm all like, come on, she's got to do it. She got to do it. And I'm all, she did the thing. Then I saw she did several things on that wall.
That universe's Steve lives long enough to see Peggy in the future.
We'll see. I think that's a question that all of us want to know, like, the answer to. And I think because they know that we want that answer, we're probably going to get some sort of answer to it later.
Health-stricken, wounded Steve.
I want a Winter Soldier Steve. Like with one big arm, like as if a baby got its hand stuck in a bowling ball and then had to grow up with that bowling ball so that they have one buff ass arm.
Steve.
Yeah. That's what I want.
All right. I think we got to wrap it up. I am curious, like, overall, like, if you guys had to score this episode, like, just by itself without knowing what comes later, like, where would you guys put this on a scale of 1 to 10? Go with Greg first.
I'll give it 8.5.
That's pretty generous. Frank, what do you think?
Give it a solid 8.
Yeah, I want to hear Ricky's. Yeah, I knew that was a 6.
It's fine. I'll watch it again. I didn't love it, but I like the idea.
I loved it, but I acknowledge that there's a lot of room for more. And so right now I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I've watched it 4 times this week, 3 on the first day. I just love it. It's so easy to watch.
Territory. Too. It's animated. It's a different change of pace for everyone.
I'm a sucker for animation too, and the animation's spectacular in the show. The faces are a little weird when they're talking, but the action is top notch, and it's like kind of like the perfect marriage of Disney and Marvel, right? Like just the way things look. Like, so yeah,
there's definitely a Disney lens to it for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
You never watched the Doctor Who things, but so they have some episodes where they lost the visuals, and they only have the audio, but they put cartoons or like animated things on the audio that they have. So it's like they recreated the show, and the animation is very similar to this What If. The What If is way better, especially when the action takes place. But when they're sitting around talking, it's a lot the same. It's very similar.
I would probably like Doctor Who way more if it was just animated all the time.
Yeah, it would probably be better, like, for you, because you don't like the special effects, right? That was one of the things.
They're awful. They're awful. But we're way over on time, so I do want to say, first and foremost, thanks to Greg Phillips for coming on our show and talking all about all the nerdy things we did and putting up with us. And if you have anything that you want to, like, if you have anything going on that you want to let people know where they can find you, please feel free to do that right now. It's fine if you don't. It's cool. Most people come on the show and they're like, I don't want people finding me. It's okay.
The people who know, like, most people who I want to be able to find me can find me. They know where I'm at on social and everything. So.
Awesome. And then obviously thanks to our patrons for supporting our growth and to our audience for tuning in. If you had fun, Frank, what can they do?
Smash that like button the way Peggy smashes that car, even though Ricky doesn't like it. Leave a comment, subscribe, ring that bell. And then
I think that's
subscribe
it.
Subscribe to Patreon.
Yes.
There you go.
That's where we're going to be in about 2 or 3 minutes from now. We're going to be heading over to the soapbox to just wind down and chat about all the things we forgot to. I got some fun facts that I didn't get to share on this one, but I will share them in the soapbox. But yeah, with that, thanks for watching Den Excelsior. See you next time, true believers. Enough said.
Stay safe.